Hey everyone. Tonight we're stepping back in time to ancient Egypt. Not the pharaohs, pyramids, or fancy gold treasures, though we'll see some of that too, but to the surprisingly structured, often harsh and rarely spoken of life of a prostitute in the Nile Valley. A woman whose labor was woven tightly into the city's economy, who navigated rules, rituals, and a constant parade of, let's say, eccentric clients. So dim the lights, get comfy, maybe turn on a soft fan or the gentle hum of a river, and let's take a stroll through her day. You wake up to the sound of the Nile just outside, mixed with the clatter of sandals on mud brick streets below your window. Your room, if it can be called that, is part of a low-rise building, mud-plastered, with reed mats for walls and a roof that leaks whenever it rains. Glass windows are reserved for temples and officials, so cloth or papyrus strips flutter where light should be. The space smells faintly of river mud, incense from the shrine in the corner, and a hint of yesterday's laundry, if laundry even happened yesterday. Your mattress is a thin mat stuffed with reeds, slightly damp from the night's humidity. You roll over, listening to the distant call of a waterfowl and the occasional shout from a street vendor below. You've been sleeping lightly for years now, so these sounds barely disturb you. Your first thought is usually practical. Water. There's a clay jar in the corner with water from the Nile, already lukewarm from the morning sun. You splash it on your face, grimacing at the mud streaks and the faint scent of algae. Your hair, tied back with a bit of faded linen, needs more care than time allows. A dab of ochre to protect your skin from the sun, a hint of kohl around your eyes to sharpen them enough to hint at beauty without wasting resources. The gown you wear is light linen, off-white, slightly frayed, but dyed a faint pink with madder, signaling both availability and a modicum of decorum. Sandals for the streets, bare feet indoors. That's the rule, the law, the way of survival. Across the narrow corridor, another woman yawns and mutters something about the drunk nobleman from last night. She's been in the business longer than you have, claims once to have entertained a priest who tried to philosophize mid-ritual. You nod politely, pretending you weren't half listening while deciding if the bread you saved from yesterday is moldy yet. The madam's voice thunders down the hall, sharp as a crocodile's snap. She's holding the ledger, the stylus tucked behind her ear, shouting about unpaid debts, stolen incense, and who used the fine oils last night. You tense. The first client will arrive soon, and there's no room for delay. You straighten your gown, wipe your hands on your skirt, and prepare to step into a day that will demand patience, resilience, and a carefully crafted smile. The morning begins with the baker from a few streets away, middle-aged, enthusiastic, convinced he's your favorite, and carrying a warm loaf of barley bread as both payment and apology for something you're sure he did wrong. You usher him in, greeting him with a practiced cheerfulness. The ritual begins, small talk, delicate flattery, careful gestures. His hands smell faintly of flower, the scent mingling oddly with the sweet, earthy perfume you've applied. You move with precision, aware that every motion is measured for both pleasure and safety. Afterwards, he leaves a few coins and the warm bread. You take a moment to appreciate it quietly. It's not gold, but it's sustenance. And today, sustenance matters more than grandeur. You tidy the mat, straighten the reed curtain, and prepare for the next arrival. Each client has quirks, some humorous, some disturbing, most somewhere in between. You've learned to respond with practiced neutrality, nodding, smiling, and thinking about your next meal or how to patch the gown that's fraying under your elbow. Breakfast in the brothel is a modest affair. Bread, figs, water, sometimes a small piece of dried fish. The women gather together, exchanging gossip, complaints, and warnings about city guards who tip poorly. Gertrude talks loudly about a nobleman who demanded she recite poetry mid-ritual. Marjorie quietly picks reeds from her hair, still bearing the remnants of a city festival. Beatrice inspects a bruise she earned from a drunken client. The madam paces, counting coins, muttering curses, and keeping everyone on schedule. Mid-morning brings the first test, the inspector of taxes, a man who wanders in at unexpected hours to ensure the brothel is compliant with city ordinances. You nod, smile, and show your compliance, aware that one misstep could cost more than just your day's earnings. The inspector leaves satisfied with his survey of cleanliness, coin records, and whether incense was properly accounted for. You exhale. One minor victory, a small reprieve in a day filled with constant demands. Then comes the exotic request. A merchant, recently returned from the Delta, insists on a performance something outlandish, mysterious, foreign. You improvise, light incense, a scarf tied artfully, a ritualistic phrase muttered under your breath, and a touch of play acting. He leaves, a trail of gold coins and vague admiration behind him. You pause, catch your breath, and make a mental note to hide a few coins for later. Maybe for a better meal or for small luxuries like a clean scarf. As the sun climbs higher, the city noises swell. Donkeys braying, market vendors shouting, riverboats clanging against the docks. Inside, the brothel hums with motion, laughter, complaints, and the occasional argument over spilled water or a stolen fig. You navigate it all, deftly balancing labor, survival, and the faint glimmer of personal dignity. By afternoon, you have a brief moment to yourself. You sit near the Nile-facing window, dipping fingers into the cool clay water jar, enjoying the fleeting peace. You watch boats drift by, merchants haggle, and children chase each other along the streets. It's not much, but it reminds you there's a world beyond the brothel's walls, a world that keeps turning, even as your day demands everything of you. You sip water, nibble a bit of dried fish, and prepare mentally for the afternoon clients, who will each bring their own challenges, demands, and occasional amusement. And then you hear the first sound that signals the next client. Sandals against mud bricks, a faint laugh, the rustle of linen, and the subtle clink of coin. You straighten your posture, adjust the scarf in your hair, and step forward. Another day has begun, and you are ready. The afternoon arrives thick with sun and the unmistakable scent of the river mixed with baking clay from the city streets. You wipe your hands on your gown and glance at the ledger the madam has shoved in your direction. Payments due, coins missing, oil stolen, standard fare. You tuck it under your arm for now. It will wait while you deal with the parade of arrivals. Your first client of the afternoon is an older scribe, hunched, ink-stained fingers twitching like he's always calculating something. He's polite, which is new, and fidgets with a reed stylus as if it holds the secrets to pleasure. You lead him to the back chamber, the one warmed by the sun through a tiny slit in the mud brick wall. He insists on storytelling mid-session, narrating a tale of a Nile crocodile and a priest who miscalculated the flood. You nod, smile faintly, and play along. There's a rhythm to this performance, a choreography you've learned over years. Listen, react, guide, extract payment, and survive intact. Next comes a pair of wealthy merchants who want to compare experiences, which means you're performing twice in a row. You roll your shoulders, stretch your back discreetly, and remind yourself that stamina isn't just physical, it's mental too. One of them asks for something authentically Egyptian. You improvise. A few dance steps learned from a temple festival, the subtle scent of crushed lotus petals rubbed on your wrists, and a chant that sounds ancient enough to convince anyone from a foreign land. Applaud, leave coins behind, and take half the linen scarf as a souvenir. You pocket the rest of your payment, noting that today's work is starting to feel profitable. Between clients, there's little time for rest. You fetch water, relight a candle in the corner of the room, and adjust the sun-dappled curtain so the light falls flatteringly. Gertrude complains loudly about a client who tried to barter in figs rather than coins. Marjorie hums under her breath, mending a torn gown, while Beatrice checks the dried fish supply for signs of spoilage. Life here is a mixture of chaos and ritual, survival and subtle strategy. You've learned to navigate it all like a seasoned captain steering through treacherous currents. A group of temple workers arrives next. They are young, eager, and carrying gifts of incense and honey, claiming they want to experience divine pleasure. Their nerves are palpable, hands sweating, voices cracking mid-sentence. You guide them with calm authority, offering small rituals to ease tension, adjusting linen wraps, and suggesting gentle massage techniques. One of them mistakes the ritual for a prayer and bows deeply. You suppress a laugh, correcting him softly. This is not the temple, friend. Focus on the now. The coins left behind are generous, and you take a moment to breathe, realizing that performance, patience, and improvisation are your best tools in this world. Mid-afternoon, the madam summons you. A wealthy merchant from Thebes has sent a note requesting a private session. His instructions are precise. Bring the lotus oil, a scarf, and patience. You nod, already familiar with his eccentricities. He likes quiet, discreet encounters and always tips well if the experience meets his expectations. You prepare, lighting a small incense stick, laying out fresh linen, and tying your hair neatly. The session begins like a gentle river flow, methodical, almost meditative. You massage the oil into his hands, guide his movements, and allow the quiet hum of the Nile outside to fill the room. The encounter ends with coins left neatly on the table and a small clay figurine of Hathor, goddess of love and music. You pocket both, smiling faintly at the thought that this work, while arduous, occasionally brings unexpected beauty. Just as you settle for a breath, the bell outside signals another arrival. A group of festival performers has wandered in, their costumes colorful, their masks vibrant. They've heard of your skill and request guidance for a demonstration, not of physical intimacy, but of charm, elegance, and the art of persuasion. You laugh softly, realizing that your training extends beyond the bed. It's in posture, voice, and presence. You guide them through gestures, practice smiles, and coach subtle expressions. In exchange, they leave small trinkets, painted beads, clay whistles, and a dried lotus flower. It's not much monetarily, but the novelty is refreshing. As the afternoon drifts toward evening, the city's rhythm changes. The streets grow louder, markets bustle with evening shoppers, children chase one another through narrow alleys, and merchants bargain with persistent zeal. Inside, the brothel grows busier too. Clients who are rushed, clumsy, or intoxicated arrive in rapid succession. You manage each interaction with precision, switching personas, adjusting your tone, and keeping the room orderly. You become a maestro, orchestrating movement, managing desire, and collecting payment with unspoken authority. Between sessions there is cleaning, linen folded, mats shaken, candles replaced, and spilled water mopped. You check the clay jars, refill small containers with water, and discreetly tend to minor injuries, scratches, bruises, or the occasional sting from an overenthusiastic client. The madam patrols constantly, issuing orders, tallying coins, and ensuring that nothing falls out of place. You nod, comply, and keep your attention on the tasks that preserve both your dignity and livelihood. Finally, as the sun lowers, you pause. A moment of quiet in the corner near the window. You sip lukewarm water, nibble on a piece of dried fig, and watch the Nile glisten. The world outside the brothel continues, indifferent but steady. The smell of river mud, baked clay, and distant cooking fires drifts in. You close your eyes for a few seconds, letting your muscles relax, savoring the fleeting peace. Tomorrow will bring another day, another parade of clients, and another series of challenges. But for now, the pause is enough. You breathe, straighten your gown, and prepare for the evening. Evening is when the real unpredictability begins. Merchants returning from long journeys, travelers with coins but little knowledge of etiquette, and officials with curious questions all mix into a chaotic ballet that tests every skill you've honed. You ready the room, light candles, and check your supplies, oils, scarves, and small charms for those who seek reassurance. The brothel fills with movement, voices, and the faint hum of the city outside. You take a deep breath and step into the evening, knowing that each client, each performance is both labor and art, survival and ritual, exhaustion and occasional delight. The afternoon ends as it began, in motion, in chaos, and with fleeting moments of beauty. You sit briefly on your reed mat, hands tired, body aching, but mind alert. Coins counted, gifts stored, linen cleaned. You prepare for the final session before night truly settles. Outside, the Nile reflects the setting sun, golden and fleeting. Inside, you steel yourself for the remaining clients, aware that tomorrow the cycle begins anew. Night falls over the city like a heavy, soot-streaked curtain. The air grows cooler, carrying the scent of smoke, baked bread, and river mud mingling with something faintly metallic from the city gates. Inside the brothel, the madam paces, muttering under her breath about missing coins and clients who never show. You take a moment to steady yourself, adjust your gown, and prepare for the final wave of the day. This is when the clientele is unpredictable. Travelers, officials, and sometimes nobles who believe their wealth entitles them to theatrics. The first arrival of the evening is a young apprentice, barely old enough to have a full beard. He fidgets nervously, shifting weight from one foot to the other, avoiding eye contact, and clutching a coin pouch like it contains the secrets of the universe. You guide him to a quiet corner, offering calm instructions, demonstrating gestures of intimacy without revealing too much, and controlling the tempo so he doesn't overwhelm himself or you. Half an hour later, he exits, cheeks red, trembling hands emptying the coin pouch in gratitude. You sigh and note the generous tip. He was harmless. Next, a local craftsman arrives, heavily muscled from labor but awkward in manner. He requests a performance which you interpret as a mixture of conversation, charm, and physical intimacy. You improvise a short dance, weaving between storytelling and gentle touch, aware of how your posture communicates both authority and availability. He laughs at your subtle jokes, pays promptly, and departs. For a moment, the room feels almost serene, the kind of calm that only lasts. The madam interrupts briefly to bark orders. Linen must be replaced, floorboards checked for leaks, and candles lit in the corners. You move efficiently, balancing preparation with anticipation of incoming clients. Time feels elastic, minutes stretch and contract depending on the urgency of arrivals. Outside, the city noises fade slightly, replaced by the distant clatter of hooves, occasional shouting, and the occasional bark from a stray dog. Inside, the brothel hums with the rhythm of work, footsteps on wooden floors, murmured greetings, and the faint hiss of heated oil in small lamps. A wealthy merchant from Heliopolis arrives, known for demanding elaborate setups. He insists on a scene of royalty, expecting the room to mimic a palace chamber. You improvise. Fresh linen laid over the straw mat, small oil lamps arranged strategically, and a scarf tied around your hair to suggest elegance. You guide him through the ritual with patience, speaking softly, directing gestures, and allowing him to maintain the illusion of control. When he departs, he leaves a generous tip and a small jar of fragrant oil, which you stash carefully. Soon after, a pair of traveling performers enters, seeking companionship, distraction, or perhaps inspiration. Their requests are whimsical. One wants storytelling, the other an explanation of city customs. You entertain, instruct, and occasionally intervene when they misstep. They leave with coins and curious tokens, carved beads, dried flowers, and a small painted figure of Anubis. These items are meaningless in currency but enrich the room's texture, reminding you that work, however grueling, sometimes yields unexpected beauty. The madam announces a short break, the first chance all day to breathe. You wash your hands, take a sip of water from a clay jar, and nibble on a piece of dried fig saved from earlier. You stretch, noticing aches in your back, shoulders, and feet, and quietly thank your training for endurance. Outside, the city lights shimmer faintly on the Nile, reflecting movement and life beyond the brothel walls. For a brief moment, the chaos pauses, leaving only the soft murmur of the river and your own heartbeat. But the pause is short. A nobleman arrives late and insistent. His cloak drags over the floor, boots muddy, fingers adorned with rings. He expects attention, ceremony, and subtle flattery. You guide him through the encounter with practiced precision, a delicate balance of charm, patience, and restraint. Conversation drifts to politics, trade, and his personal grievances. You nod, respond, and steer the interaction toward a satisfactory conclusion. But, coins exchanged, he departs, leaving behind an air of haughty satisfaction. The last client of the night is the most peculiar. A priest, timid and hesitant, requests confession. You play along, a delicate dance between discretion and professionalism. He mutters prayers, makes awkward gestures, and clutches a small jar of wine as though it were a holy relic. You listen, guide, and maintain composure, ensuring the session ends promptly and respectfully. He leaves quietly, Paying in silver and offering a few dried figs as thanks, you tuck the gifts away, grateful for their rarity and taste. With the final session complete, the brothel begins winding down. Candles are extinguished, stray coins collected, and linens folded. The madam tallies the day's earnings, occasionally muttering curses at lost coins or forgotten tips. You tidy your space, stow away oils, scarves, and props, and take a deep breath. The day has been long, chaotic, and exhausting, yet another layer of survival in a world that rarely shows mercy. Finally, you sit by the window, listening to the city settle. The river murmurs, distant shouts fade, and the scent of clay, fish, and river water drifts through the room. For a brief moment, you allow yourself reflection. Coins collected, meals eaten, clients satisfied, and the occasional small gift received. It has been a day of persistence and performance. The work is demanding, yet it sustains you, granting both livelihood and a measure of agency. As the night deepens, the brothel grows quiet. Gertrude snores in her corner, Marjorie patches torn garments, and Beatrice cleans tools used earlier. You lay down on the straw mattress, sore and weary, listening to the faint squeak of rats moving quietly in the shadows. For a moment, peace settles. Tomorrow will bring another cycle. Clients, chaos, and negotiation of survival. But for now, you allow yourself rest, the briefest respite before dawn demands engagement once again. Sleep comes in fits and starts, punctuated by memories of the day, the merchant with the lotus oil, the nobleman's haughty grin, the clumsy apprentice, and the priest's whispered prayers. Dreams are fragmented and absurd, some pleasant, some surreal. Still, for a few hours, your mind is free. The body rests, muscles relax, and the brothel, silent at last, offers a temporary sanctuary. The night drifts deeper, and the brothel takes on a rhythm all its own. The candles flicker in the corners, shadows stretching across timbered walls like long-forgotten memories. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, oil, and a lingering hint of incense from earlier clients. You stretch, feeling the knots in your back remind you that standing, bending, and holding performances all day leaves its mark. The madam prowls through the common room, ledger in hand, muttering about debts, unpaid fines, and the men who never seem to grasp the concept of tipping properly. Coins, girls, coins, she snaps loud enough to rattle the mirrors nailed to the walls, which only reflect fractured glimpses of weary faces. You glance at Gertrude, sprawled across a bench, her rouge smeared like abstract art. Beatrice is quietly cleaning, humming a tune that reminds you of riverboats and markets far away. Marjorie is fixing a seam in her gown, the needle stabbing rhythmically into the fabric as though marking time itself. A late arrival interrupts the quiet a visiting scribe, thin and pale with ink-stained fingers and a notebook tucked under his arm. He wants companionship, conversation, and, of course, discretion. You usher him to a corner chamber and play the role of attentive listener while keeping your hands and mind occupied with subtle adjustments, moving cushions, arranging oil lamps, smoothing the rough edges of a worn rug. He talks endlessly about parchment quality, city council debates, and the frustrations of copywork, oblivious to the exhaustion radiating from your posture. You nod, smile, and occasionally interject, careful to appear interested without investing too much energy. Once he departs, leaving a modest tip, you pause to breathe. The room is quiet again, save for the occasional creak of the buildings settling and the faint shuffle of rats near the hearth. You move through your evening routine, gathering linens, checking the floor for spills, extinguishing candles that are too close to fraying curtains. Every action is methodical, trained, and performed with the precision of someone who knows that chaos is the default state here, and any semblance of order is temporary and hard-won. Then, a commotion from the street below signals another unexpected visitor. Boots clatter against the cobblestones, a voice calls out, and the madam mutters something under her breath before disappearing to manage the front door. You brace yourself. The new client is no ordinary man. A traveling soldier, weary from campaigns and still smelling faintly of sweat, mud, and distant battlefields, pushes the door open. He glances around nervously, unsure of etiquette or custom, and you greet him with practiced calm. He requests a role play, a damsel in distress scenario, though he lacks imagination for specifics. You improvise quickly, guiding him through gestures, positioning, and dialogue. He fumbles, apologizes, and laughs nervously. You gently correct him, suggesting subtle movements that heighten the drama without exhausting either of you. Time moves strangely here. Moments are elongated, compressed, and measured only by the passing of candles and the occasional shout from the street. Eventually the soldier leaves, bowing awkwardly and leaving behind a pouch of coins and a small charm he claims will bring protection. You pocket the gifts with quiet gratitude, noting the rarity of receiving anything more than currency. The room settles again, the atmosphere heavy with warmth, faint incense, and the lingering presence of the day's work. Now comes the slow march toward midnight, when the remaining few clients trickle in. Often the most peculiar or demanding. A wandering monk appears, curious about the human condition and eager to witness, in his words, the morality of the city. You guide him gently through conversation, avoiding direct engagement in anything that could cause scandal. He departs after a brief discussion, leaving behind a poorly sketched manuscript, which you tuck away in a drawer for amusement later. Shortly afterward, a pair of local merchants arrives, arguing constantly, one insisting on playing the part of suitor, the other pretending to be aloof and disinterested. You navigate their theatrics with subtlety, offering gestures of attention, interspersed with quiet commentary that keeps the encounter under control. Coins are exchanged, tips given grudgingly, and they depart satisfied, their arguments lingering in the corners like echoes. Adam reappears, announcing that the last hour is approaching. The brothel will soon close its doors, and she expects the women to tidy up, prepare linens for the next day, and account for every coin. You work efficiently, folding fabric, collecting stray items, and check the walls, stained and bowed, seem to sigh with you, their ancient timber remembering every step, every whispered word, every loud exclamation from earlier in the day. You finally take a moment for yourself. Leaning against the window, you observe the city bathed in moonlight, the streets quieter now, shadows long and deep. The sounds of the river mingle with faint hooves, distant dogs barking, and the occasional shout from a tavern. You allow yourself a brief sigh of relief. The calm before dawn brings a new day. Coins collected, clients tended, and minor chaos survived. You reflect on the strange rhythm of this life: labor, negotiation, performance, survival. Sleep is elusive now, but you close your eyes briefly, allowing your body to rest while your mind remains vigilant. The night brings dreams that are fractured, surreal, sometimes funny, sometimes poignant. You think of the merchant with the lotus oil, the soldier with his charm, the scribbled manuscript left by the monk. Each memory, each interaction is a testament to your endurance, skill, and ability to adapt. As the final hour passes, the brothel quiets almost completely. Candles burn low, the madam counts coins with satisfaction, and the women settle into corners, exhausted but momentarily at peace. Outside, the city sleeps uneasily, the river murmuring, alleyways silent, the occasional hoot of an owl reminding you that life continues beyond these walls. You finally collapse onto the straw mattress, body aching, feet sore, hair disheveled. The day's work weighs heavily, but there is a strange satisfaction in surviving it, in earning coin, in navigating both the absurd and the mundane. Rats scurry quietly, shadows move, and the brothel for a moment offers a temporary sanctuary from the demands of the city. Dawn is still far away. For now you lie back, letting exhaustion carry you into a light, fitful sleep. Dreams filled with fragments of the day, the soldier's awkward bow, the monk's sketches, the distant river, the smell of lavender and incense, and the faint hope that tomorrow somehow you will do it all again and survive. Dawn creeps in slowly, a pale grey light seeping through the cracks in the shutters. The brothel is quiet now, a stark contrast to the chaos of the night. You lift your head from the straw mattress, feeling the aches of muscles that have long given up on complaining politely, Your hair sticks up in multiple directions and a faint layer of grime covers your skin. A small victory, however, is that you're still clothed barely, but enough to avoid public scandal. The madam is already on her feet, checking the front door for loose coins and inspecting the floors for evidence of overturned chamber pots. She grunts at Gertrude, who stirs but makes no effort to rise, preferring to grumble from the bench she has claimed as her personal throne. Beatrice is awake, sweeping the floor with methodical precision, her eyes half closed in exhaustion but still sharp enough to spot every stray straw and crumb. Marjorie quietly scrubs a basin with the fervor of someone trying to erase the memory of last night's events. You rise slowly, your joints complaining with every movement, and stretch before gathering the linens from the rooms you tended the night before. The straw mattresses need fluffing, the blankets straightening, and any evidence of bodily fluids must be discreetly cleaned. Hygiene is still optional, but appearances are mandatory. You dip your hands into the icy water of a small ceramic basin, scrubbing them clean with rough linen, thinking about how the city outside has already begun its morning bustle. From the window, you catch glimpses of merchants setting up stalls in the market, their voices calling out prices for fish, meat, and vegetables. Horses clip-clop over cobblestones, carts creak under heavy loads, and the river shimmers faintly under the early sun. Life continues outside these walls, oblivious to the tiny dramas, the whispered conversations, and the carefully curated illusions within. You grab a piece of hard bread and a chunk of cheese, washing it down with a sip of watered ale, because fresh water is scarce and the well outside is already crowded. Conversation is minimal. Everyone is tired, mind still half in the night. Gertrude hums a nonsensical tune, and Beatrice mutters about someone stealing last night's honey. The madam barks orders, reminding everyone that the city inspector could arrive any moment, and cleanliness, while impossible, must be attempted. The first client of the day arrives shortly after. A young apprentice from the smithy, nervous, fumbling, and eager to prove himself. You guide him patiently through the motions, gently correcting his mistakes and allowing him small victories to boost his confidence. Coins exchange hands, tips are grudgingly given, and you guide him out the door, hiding your relief at the simplicity of this encounter. No sooner has he left than another client approaches. A local scribe this time. Middle-aged, balding, and obsessed with the intricacies of Latin grammar. He requests an experience steeped in romantic authenticity, which you interpret loosely. A quick improvisation, a whispered suggestion here, a laugh there, and he leaves satisfied, leaving behind a small pouch of coins and a folded scrap of parchment. You peek at it discreetly. It's a crude attempt at poetry, and you hide it away with a quiet chuckle. By mid-morning, the brothel has settled into a rhythm. You continue tending the rooms, fluffing mattresses, washing linens, and checking for any stains that may have been missed. The madam inspects your work, frowning slightly but ultimately nodding her approval. Gertrude, now upright and animated, recounts last night's events with embellishments that are equal parts horror and comedy. Beatrice hums again, scrubbing fiercely, and Marjorie hums a different tune, lost in her own world. A commotion at the front door signals yet another visitor. This time it's a wealthy merchant, smelling faintly of perfume and exotic spices. He demands something unique. Props are scarce, so you rely on gesture, voice, and small tricks. A ribbon here, a veil there, a well-timed laugh and a candle flicker that casts shadows just right. He leaves satisfied, handing over a generous coin purse. You tuck it away carefully, mentally noting that this will cover your share of rent and the proper meal tonight. After he leaves, the day slows slightly. You take a moment to breathe, leaning against the window. Outside, the city hums with life. The baker sets his stall, holding up. Children run through alleyways, their laughter carrying faintly through the narrow streets. A dog barks, a cart squeaks, and you allow yourself a brief smile. Survival has its little victories, and moments like this are treasures. Afternoon brings more clients, each with their peculiarities and demands. A young clerk insists on role-playing a nobleman rescuing a captive maiden, while a soldier seeks a theatrical experience involving dramatic gestures and whispered declarations of valor. You navigate each scenario with the precision of someone who has mastered both the art of performance and endurance. Coins exchange hands, compliments are offered, and you guide each client through a ritual that leaves them satisfied, and you, surprisingly, sitting in the corner with a crust of bread and a fig that's seen better days, you observe the world through a small window. The sun slants low, casting long shadows across the cobblestones. The river glints faintly, and distant bells toll from the cathedral. It's peaceful here, in this brief respite between clients, cleaning, and preparation for the evening. As the day winds down, the brothel prepares for the night ahead. Candles are lit, rooms are tidied, and the madam inspects everything with her usual sharp eye. You adjust your attire, make small adjustments to hair and makeup, and prepare mentally for the evening's clients, each bringing their own chaos and oddities. The rhythm of the day, the cleaning, the entertaining, the negotiating, the survival has become second nature. You move through it with practiced ease, knowing that soon the door will open again and the next person will arrive. Evening approaches, and with it comes the familiar mix of anticipation, fatigue, and quiet triumph. You take a moment to reflect. The day has been long, exhausting, and strange. Coins have been earned, linens cleaned, clients appeased, and chaos survived. You stretch your aching back, allowing a brief smile at your own resilience. Survival, after all, is an art, and you are its master. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting the city in shadow, you prepare for the night's work, ready to meet whatever madness, absurdity, or peculiarity awaits. This is your life, structured, chaotic, and strangely rewarding. You tie your scarf tighter, adjust your gown, and step toward the door, ready for the night to begin. Night begins to settle over the city like a heavy, damp blanket. The streets darken, the market stalls close, and the alleys that smelled faintly of fresh bread and river muck now carry the scent of smoke, sweat, and something only vaguely identifiable as hope. The brothel awakens again, not with the sunrise, but with lanterns flickering, candles sputtering, and the ever-present echo of the madam's sharp commands. You check the rooms one last time, straightening blankets and replacing any eye. Gertrude is already stationed at the front, humming a tune that's half lullaby, half curse, her face smeared with rouge from earlier attempts to look appealing, or at least awake. Beatrice meticulously scrubs what remains of the floor, eyes narrowing in concentration, while Marjorie arranges the linens with the precision of someone who has lost track of time, but not pride. The first client of the evening arrives as twilight falls. He's a young soldier, fresh from the city guard, nervous, eager, and smelling faintly of iron and sweat. He fumbles with his belt, nervously glancing around as though the city itself might spy on him. You guide him patiently, your voice calm and practiced, your movements deliberate. You know exactly how to set the mood without giving yourself away to exhaustion. He asks for an experience like the songs describe, which you interpret loosely. A few gestures, a whispered phrase, a tilt of the head, and he's enthralled. Coins are handed over, a tip included, and he leaves, satisfied and slightly red-faced. You exhale, allowing a brief moment of relief before the next client arrives. This one more eccentric, demanding a dramatic role play involving a captured princess scenario that sounds suspiciously like last month's night but with different dialogue. Throughout the evening, the clients come and go in a parade of quirks, each bringing a new challenge. One man insists on singing throughout, his voice cracking mid-verse. Another brings an assortment of exotic spices to sprinkle over the bed, and yet another arrives armed with a book he insists must be read aloud during the act. You adapt quickly, improvising props and gestures to maintain the illusion of exotic excitement. Every encounter is a performance, every tip a reward for surviving another round of absurdity. The madam keeps a close eye on everything, tallying coins, checking rooms, and ensuring that no client leaves unsatisfied or underpaid. Her ledger grows heavier as the night progresses, and you glance at it occasionally, calculating how much of the evening's earnings will make it into your pocket. Gertrude and Beatrice continue their tasks with unflinching determination, their energy seemingly endless despite the hours. Marjorie, quieter than usual, hums softly, her gaze distant as she sweeps away the remnants of breadcrumbs, spilled ale, and dust. A sudden commotion at the front door signals the arrival of a particularly unusual client. A wealthy merchant, flamboyant and ostentatious, enters with a flourish. He demands something memorable, unforgettable, and thrilling. You smile politely and lead him to a room that has seen better days, improvising with props and gestures to create the illusion of exotic mystery. A scarf becomes a veil, a cracked mask adds intrigue, and a single candle casts flickering shadows across the walls. The act itself is more performance art than intimacy, and you navigate it with practiced ease. By the middle of the night, the brothel is filled with a symphony of sounds, laughter, complaints, sighs, and the occasional grunt or thud from someone who misjudged their balance. You move through the chaos, guiding clients, collecting coins, and keeping the illusion intact. The rhythm is exhausting but familiar. A dance you have mastered over countless nights. Each client leaves, sometimes with a tip, sometimes with a story, and always with the impression that they experience something more magical than reality would allow. Finally, as the clock inches towards the early hours, the last clients depart. The brothel quiets, leaving only the whispers of those still awake and the faint rustling of linens. You take a deep breath, stretching tired muscles and allowing a moment of satisfaction to wash over you. The madam begins her nightly count, ensuring all coins and items are accounted for, while Gertrude, Beatrice, and Marjorie slowly settle into a semblance of rest. Retreat to your small room, collapsing onto the straw mattress with the exhaustion of someone who has survived not just the night, but an entire parade of absurdities, demands, and minor disasters. The candle flickers beside you, casting soft light across the room, and for a moment you allow yourself to simply breathe. The chaos of the day and night recedes, leaving only the quiet hum of the city beyond the walls. As you close your eyes, thoughts drift to the small victories. The coin hidden in a floorboard, the stale fig that brought unexpected sweetness, the brief moments of laughter shared with Gertrude or Beatrice. You remember the ridiculous demands of clients, the poetry that caught fire, and even Robert the Rat, scuttling unseen in the corners. Survival is messy, exhausting, and absurd, but tonight, for a brief moment, it is also satisfying. Sleep finally arrives, heavy and ungraceful, wrapping you in its temporary oblivion. Dreams are strange, a mixture of silk beds, exotic scents, and absurd encounters that echo the day's chaos. The city outside continues its relentless rhythm, indifferent to the struggles within. You rest, knowing that when morning comes, the cycle will begin again, demanding, unpredictable, and strangely comforting in its predictability. Morning comes slowly, like a reluctant guest. The first light seeps through the cracks in the shutters, pale and grey, carrying the faint chill of dawn. You stir on your straw mattress, muscles stiff and sore, but with the familiarity of routine guiding you. The city beyond the walls is already alive, the sounds of merchants, horses, and the occasional curse blending into a strange lullaby for those who never truly sleep. Your room is cold, the faint smell of last night's chaos lingering in the corners. You stretch carefully, mindful of the bruises and aches collected like souvenirs. The floor creaks beneath your feet, a familiar reminder that this building has seen better centuries, or perhaps never quite seen them at all. You pause for a moment, rubbing your eyes, and listen. There's the faint sound of a water barrel being dragged, a distant crowing, and the occasional muffled shout that could be an argument or just a man falling off a cart. You dress quickly in the faded red gown that signals both availability and compliance with city regulations. The fabric is stiff, the color dull from repeated washes, but it carries authority more than enough to navigate the day ahead. Your hair is tied back with a ribbon that has survived better days, and your face bears the faintest traces of last night's attempts at beauty. Flattery, after all, is a necessary tool, and even the faintest hint of attention can earn you a coin or a favor. Downstairs, the madam is already in motion, ledger in hand, muttering about unpaid debts and damaged linens. Gertrude is perched near the front door, offering unsolicited advice to anyone who dares enter too slowly. Beatrice is sweeping with focused precision, her movements sharp and efficient. Marjorie hums softly, attempting to soothe the chaos with a tune that is equal parts lullaby and dirge. Take a deep breath, reminding yourself that the day will demand patience, grace, and the occasional act of creative deception. The first client of the morning is a local craftsman, a carpenter with rough hands and a surprisingly gentle manner. He greets you with a shy smile, his eyes betraying a mixture of curiosity and embarrassment. You guide him to your room, noting the subtle shift in his demeanor as he takes in the space. The act itself is quick, professional, and devoid of unnecessary flourish. Coins are exchanged, conversation is minimal, and you navigate the encounter with the practiced detachment that has become second nature. After he leaves, there is a brief lull. You take a moment to check your small stash, counting coins, noting which props need cleaning or repair, and mentally cataloguing the day ahead. Breakfast, if it can be called that, consists of stale bread and a small chunk of cheese, shared in silence with the other women. The conversation is minimal, punctuated only by sighs, coughs, and the occasional muttered complaint about last night's chaos. As the morning progresses, the clients arrive in waves. Each brings their own peculiarities, from the nobleman obsessed with poetry to the merchant who insists on elaborate role-play involving imaginary battles and heroic rescues. You adapt seamlessly, improvising props, gestures, and dialogue to maintain the illusion of exotic intrigue. Each encounter is both performance and survival, a careful negotiation between desire, expectation, and personal endurance. By midday, the brothel is alive with the hum of activity. The madam directs traffic with unyielding authority, ensuring that every client is attended to, every coin accounted for, and every complaint managed with efficiency. Gertrude, Beatrice, and Marjorie continue their respective tasks, each contributing to the delicate ecosystem of the establishment. You navigate the space with practiced ease, aware of every movement, every sound, and every subtle shift in atmosphere. A particularly memorable client arrives just before noon, a traveling scholar eager for both company and conversation. He speaks of distant lands, strange customs, and books filled with knowledge you may never touch. The act itself is brief, but the conversation lingers, providing a rare glimpse into a world beyond the brothel walls. Coins are exchanged, and he departs with a polite nod, leaving behind a small token, a feather, carefully wrapped in paper, which you tuck into your dress with a quiet smile. The afternoon is quieter, allowing a brief respite. You use the time to clean, repair, and prepare. Linens are washed, candles replaced, and props organized. The air is filled with the faint scent of lavender and vinegar, an attempt to mask the inevitable odors that cling to both people and walls. You eat what remains of your breakfast, savoring each bite as a small victory, a reminder that survival often comes in the form of tiny, tangible comforts. As evening approaches, the city outside shifts. The streets fill with merchants closing their stalls, children running home, and the occasional clatter of a cart navigating uneven cobblestones. Inside, the brothel prepares for the night's main rush. Candles are lit, rooms checked, and the women take a moment to steel themselves for the chaos to come. The madam, ever vigilant, surveys her domain with a watchful eye, ensuring that every detail is attended to. Nightfall brings its own rhythm. The first clients of the evening arrive, each with expectations, peculiarities, and a willingness to pay. You move through the encounters with practiced grace, improvising where necessary, guiding where needed, and maintaining the delicate balance between performance and personal boundaries. Coins are collected, tips noted, and props adjusted. Every act is a negotiation, every smile a tool, and every gesture calculated for maximum effect with minimal personal cost. By the late evening, exhaustion begins to weigh heavily. Your body aches, your mind is fatigued, and yet the work continues. The brothel remains alive with sound, movement, and the occasional burst of chaos. You navigate each encounter with professionalism, relying on instinct, experience, and a deep understanding of human behavior. Every client leaves, the room is reset, and the next wave approaches. Finally, in the early hours of the night, the last clients depart. Silence settles over the brothel like a blanket, punctuated only by the occasional creak of floorboards and the faint whisper of wind through the shutters. You collapse onto your straw mattress, weary but victorious. Coins are counted, linens hung, and the rooms tidied as much as circumstances allow. Lying in the quiet, you reflect on the day, the absurdities, the challenges, the small victories, and the moments of genuine connection. You allow yourself a brief smile, knowing that survival requires both resilience and humor. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, but for now, there is a rare moment of peace. Sleep finally arrives, heavy and unrelenting, carrying you into dreams that blend reality and fantasy, chaos and calm, work and fleeting respite. Dawn arrives like a reluctant witness. Pale light seeps through the cracks in the shutters, painting the brothel in grey and gold, the colours of exhaustion and hope mingled. You stretch on your straw mattress, bones complaining softly, muscles tight with the memory of yesterday's work. The city outside is beginning its usual chorus. Carts rattling, merchants shouting, dogs barking, and someone in the alley retching for reasons only they know. You sit up slowly, gathering strength for the new day. The first task is always cleaning, because no matter how hard you try, the previous night leaves its mark. Linens are dragged to the wash tub, walls wiped as best as possible, and floorboards swept of remnants, crumbs, coins, stray feathers, and the occasional forgotten token from a client. You move with the efficiency born of years surviving in this place, the motions automatic, almost meditative, yet never mindless. Breakfast is meager, better in silence with the other women. Bread, cheese, a fig or two, and whatever scraps have been salvaged from the chaos. Conversation drifts in fragments. Gossip, complaints, and occasional laughter, mostly at someone else's misfortune. The madam presides over the scene like a strict general, her voice sharp, her eyes watchful, her presence a constant reminder that order, however fleeting, is necessary. You pause for a moment by the cracked mirror nailed to the wall, inspecting your reflection. Hair mussed, face pale, eyes sharp despite exhaustion. There's a quiet pride in the way you stand, in the way you have survived yet another. Survival is measured not just in coin collected, but in endurance, in the ability to navigate madness, desire, and the constant negotiation of dignity in a world that often forgets it exists. Clients begin to arrive with the sun climbing higher. Each one brings expectation, fear, excitement, or desperation. You move through the encounters with practiced grace, guiding, adjusting, and performing the rituals of your profession. Every gesture is calculated, every smile precise, every interaction a delicate dance between pleasure, performance, and self-preservation. Coins are exchanged, tips noted, and brief moments of humanity found in fleeting laughter or gentle conversation. By midday, the brothel hums with life. The madam directs operations, Gertrude handles chaos with flair. Beatrice tends to her duties with quiet efficiency, and Marjorie flits between tasks with an energy that is equal parts hope and despair. You navigate the space like a seasoned captain through turbulent seas, aware of every sound, every smell, every movement, and every potential hazard. The afternoon is quieter, a reprieve before the evening rush. You take this time to repair what can be repaired, clean what can be cleaned, and prepare what will soon be demanded. Linens are hung, props checked, and every corner inspected for potential pitfalls. You eat what remains of the morning's bread and cheese, savoring each bite, a small reward in a day defined by necessity rather than comfort. As evening falls, the city shifts again. Shadows lengthen in the alleys, the market closes, and the streets fill with the sounds of evening traffic. Hooves on cobblestones, merchants shouting last calls, the occasional drunken song. Inside, the brothel braces for the night's arrivals. Candles are lit, rooms prepared, and the women take a final breath before the parade of clients begins anew. Night brings chaos, as always. The clientele varies from curious to demanding, each encounter a mixture of performance, negotiation, and endurance. You navigate these interactions with skill honed over countless days and nights. Coins are collected, props used, laughter extracted when necessary, and boundaries maintained with subtle precision. Each act is both labor and art, survival and performance intertwined. By the early hours of the morning, the last clients have departed. The brothel, exhausted but intact, falls into a fragile quiet. You collapse onto the straw mattress, muscles aching, mind buzzing with the events of the day. Coins are counted, linens hung, rooms tidied, and a few moments of calm savored before the next day begins. The city outside is quiet, save for distant dogs barking, carts moving, and the occasional voice echoing down the alley. You allow yourself a moment to reflect. Yesterday's madness, today's labor, tomorrow's uncertainty, they blend together into a rhythm of endurance. Humor has saved you more than once. Absurdity has been a shield, and brief moments of kindness coins left by a thoughtful client, a shared joke among the women, have provided light in otherwise dark days. You eat the last of the figs, dry and tough, but yours. You sip a small cup of watered-down ale, warming both body and spirit. Sleep beckons, heavy and irresistible. The straw mattress cradles you, thin though it may be, offering a temporary sanctuary from the demands of the day. Outside, the city continues, indifferent yet familiar, a constant backdrop to a life lived at the intersection of survival, service, and quiet resilience. Your mind drifts, imagining a world outside these walls, streets cleaner, beds softer, meals plentiful, and clients kind or at least manageable. Yet even as you dream, reality asserts itself. Rats scurry, the floorboards creak, the wind whistles through cracks, and distant voices carry the promise of tomorrow's chaos. You smile, knowing that survival has never required perfection, only endurance, skill, and occasional humor. Sleep finally arrives, heavy and merciful, carrying you into a night of dreams where the brothel is quiet, the city distant, and your body and mind momentarily at peace. Tomorrow will demand the same, or more. But for now, you rest. For a few hours, the straw mattress is soft, the coins are counted, the chaos paused, and even in a world that is relentless, absurd, and demanding, there is a small, hard-earned reprieve.